welcome to No Apologies on Beck. I am your host, Lori Hins. I am very pleased to have with me this evening, zooming in actually remotely from New Mexico. This is a really big deal for me to have you on. This is Professor David Clements. Now, I'm very pleased to have you on the show, and I've been following you for some time on Telegram, and I was really hoping to have you on, and now I'm very, very excited to welcome you onto No Apologies, David.
Hi, Lori. It's good to be with you.
So I thought we would talk a little bit about what you have been doing over the last, for sure, year, because I've been following you probably at least that long, and you have had a mission to educate people and give them information about election integrity.
Yeah. Former law professor, former prosecutor, award-winning in both areas. And I saw what everyone saw on November 3rd, 2020, that there was a massive crime and cover-up. And folks' intuition, I think, was right from day one, but they were told immediately by the media and certain bottlenecks of corruption that this was the safest and most secure election in history. And I just didn't buy it. I still don't buy it. So I did my own fact-finding inquiry, reported on the evolution of the lawsuits that were filed. I interviewed just about every expert witness that you could find that had anything to do with the election fraud lawsuits. And then I got to meet basically all the who's who players in this fight, whether it's Mike Lindell or Dr. Douglas Frank, you name it. I've met them, I've interviewed them. And at some point, I had to shift from interviewing people to help lead efforts to do audits and canvasses. And to date, I've been to 30 plus states in person. We've got canvas initiatives across the country. I'm overseeing an audit here in New Mexico, a full forensic audit that is going to have explosive results as soon as I'm allowed to tell you about them. And, you know, we're just trying to take back our country one county at a time, getting rid of rigged election machines.
Now, you're not the only one doing this. Like you said, you mentioned some other people, some of the rock stars out there who are doing the same thing. And currently, there are two big movies out that are going in completely different directions, but they're all coming up with the same interesting results, and that is that it was rigged, that there were problems, and the deniers, if you will, are those people who, you know, will just simply say, no, nothing to see here.
Yeah, you've got the phenomena of what's going out with 2000 Mules, which has got just in fantastic evidence about the vote trafficking scheme. And that's one part of it. So they've got the receipts there. The part that I focus on is more about the machine sheet. You know, I look at the vote trafficking and the ballot stuffing as the cover up to the machine-driven manipulation. And you can see that through cast vote records that we've retrieved in at least 12 different states that shows massive manipulation at the digital level. And we're finding that here. And so one concrete example of a record that we get is the cast vote record. And all that is it's a record that shows how people voted in time at a voting location. And you have to abide by this thing called the law of large numbers. And anyone that's ever been a part of a poll understands this. You don't have to poll every single person in a county. You don't have to poll 29,000 people to get a sense of what that county thinks about a politician, a product. But once you get to a certain number, a large enough number, it's usually like 500, the variability will cease and it will start to flatline. Interestingly enough, though, with these cast vote records, you don't see a variability and flatlining. You see a linear incline or decline to a predetermined set point. That's impossible.
Right.
And yet we're finding
statistically
it across. No, it's impossible. The only way that you could prove it, or the only way that it would be real in real life, would be to think, okay, did 6,000 people that voted for Biden just happen to line up in a row? Because that's the only way you're going to have that deviation to violate that law. Right. And so not only do we have that, we're finding software on machines that were certified that shouldn't be on there, that actually shuffles and manipulates votes. We found that in Antrim County, Michigan. We're finding it everywhere.
In North Dakota, we have ES&S machines. We do not have Dominion that I am aware, but we have ES&S machines. And what can you tell me about those?
Well, it's just as bad. In fact, the flip that we saw of 6,000 votes in Michigan wasn't with a Dominion machine. It was actually done with an ES&S machine. The model was a DS200, and that was the one where we cracked the hood, and there was a chip modem that was attached to the motherboard. It gets even worse. There's 14,000 of those units in circulation in use today across the country. So ES&S has avoided much of the nasty headlines that Dominion has, but essentially they've got the same vulnerabilities to their hardware, and they have the same software. And that software is designed to do things that you shouldn't be able to do, which is to manipulate votes.
Well, we were assured by our election officials in the state that it was not connected to the internet, that it was independent and specifically not internet ready. So we are to believe that, but have you looked at any of North Dakota's numbers at all in your forensics?
Well, whatever they're telling you is the same talking points that John Paulos said. He's the CEO of Dominion, and he committed perjury when he said that in front of Michigan's legislature. The e-poll books or the poll bags that are used across the country, those are hooked to the internet. No one disputes that. And there's a record of data that's being sent and transmitted to your Secretary of State on election day. So you can't say that when we talk about the machines, we need to be very precise. And the poll books are part of that. Then you have the tabulators themselves. I just gave you concrete evidence that ES&S has been found to have motherboards with chip modems. And even if they don't, they've got USB ports, which can take a USB modem. Then you go, and let's say that there's no tabulation at all, where it's hooked up to the internet. You're going to retrieve SD cards from those tabulators and upload them to an election management system, an EMS system, which is networked to the internet. So depending on where you want to stop and look at the possible vulnerabilities, they're all over the place. And it's no different in North Dakota. I got the same objections in New Mexico, where we're doing our audit in a red county. All the Republicans won. And what we're finding is that 40% of our voter rolls are inaccurate. That's 40% in a place that swore up and down that we have no fraud. 5% of those that we canvassed had their votes dropped from the official voter rolls. 5%. People that swear up and down that they voted on November 3rd, 2020, there is no record of their vote in the official voter rolls. So we went in there not knowing anything, and we're finding massive fraud. North Dakota, I will presume, is not much different than any other place, because an algorithm was used in every county that had machines in every state.
It's an amazing thing. Every time I hear you talk, my mind is kind of like, okay, wait. You blow my mind every time you give that information, because I know what my gut tells me, and my gut tells me something was not right. And you say that sometimes, and I've seen some of your videos, and you say, you know what, your common sense kicks in and it tells you something was not right.
Yeah, well, I work at a common sense level. When I was a trial attorney, you talk to a jury, and that jury never had the expertises of the people that took the stand, and they got to judge the credibility. And I think it's very odd that when we go to these county commission meetings or we talk to election officials, they'll parade out their experts, but they will never allow you to have access to their system or to the physical ballots. What's going on in New Mexico and Maricopa County were miracles, because we were the only two places in the country over the past 15 months that had access to our physical ballots. And things didn't match up in Maricopa. They're not matching up in New Mexico. And this problem's not going away. And with this 2000 Mules documentary, the stuff that we're doing, people are starting to go into save yourself mode. Our clerk is now working with us because she's very, very nervous about what we're finding. And that will continue, because the truth is the truth. It's going to present itself at some point.
You are watching No Apologies on Beck. I am Lori Hinz. Welcome back. With me, remoting in from New Mexico, law professor David Clements. And Dr. David, is it Dr. David Clements, or is it just Professor David Clements?
Well, I'm not a medical doctor, so lawyers that have a doctorate degree, we normally don't refer to ourselves as doctor, but at the university setting, people call us by our doctoral names or professor. Either one's fine. So
you have had students in classes before, and have you talked to them at all about election integrity issues? I know that you've talked, I've seen some of the things that you've done where you've talked about where they were coming after you like crazy because you were so outspoken at your university.
Yeah, they came after me. I mean, I had students that came out to me privately and supported me because I was on Tucker Carlson over a year ago. And I was the first person with my credentials that basically said, look, there's overwhelming evidence. And I think, the first person with my qualifications that said that almost all of the cases were dismissed on procedural grounds, not on actually hearing the merits. And once you go on a show like Tucker and you are in a university system, most of the professors are liberal or progressive or Marxist. And so that may be very, very unpopular amongst faculty, but students came out and expressed support. Some folks that worked with me expressed it, but that target just continued, and it got a little bit harder and harder to navigate until it really became a problem with the jab mandates and the mask mandates. And I'm a subject matter expert on consumer protection, so I was following all of the VAERS literature, and I'm sitting there going, these masks don't make us safer. In fact, if I tell my students that they do, that's a deceptive practice and it violates federal law. So I had just received an award, the most prestigious award that my university or my college offers for teaching. And I had this moment of, do I accept the award and put on a mask, or do I live and walk the talk, so to speak? And so I actually recorded my last class where I was trying to educate my students on the dangers of a non-tested experimental jab, and that they need to make sure that their conscience isn't bound to take treatment that they don't believe is safe. And for that, I was suspended and then later terminated. So I am a former law professor, but the irony is that just months later, the Supreme Court affirmed my position that I articulated, that it was unconstitutional. And just even more recently, a federal court struck down the mask mandates with the airlines. Right. And so I've been proven right on both fronts from the legal arguments I asserted back in October, but that doesn't mean I get an apology letter, and it doesn't mean apparently that I get my job back. But I had to stand in the gap, and I did my best with the information that I had at hand.
Most everything that I have seen that you have talked about and that what you have done, you do stand in the gap. You live your faith. You are bold about talking about it, which is one of my favorite things about you. But you also have given so much evidence. You have a website that is theprofessorsrecord.com, and just perusing that, you can get a wealth of information there. I think we're so many different multiple 80 plus lawsuits and links to court filings and things that you have, that filings that you can find there, and all the information about where they were, how they were dismissed, whether they were accepted. You know, all of that information is so valuable, and people are looking for a central place to get that information, and you really offer it with your website. It's amazing.
Well, thank you. It's been a compilation. I also have a Rumble channel. It's the Professor's Record, and I upload more or less, these are long form interviews, and some of them are 30 minutes, some are 3 hours, because I want to treat this like I did when I was a trial attorney. You would do a direct examination, and you just let people talk, and at some point you're going to arrive at the truth. So I wanted to afford the American people something that I was used to when our justice system works, which is you let credible people that saw things, that heard things, give their side of the story. And that doesn't mean you have to believe them or accept everything, because there's lots of things that we're learning every day. My understanding today is very, very different than it was a year ago. And so we gave that space, and so people can actually see the evolution of my thinking, but hear credible people that to date, for the most part, have withstood scrutiny. Not all of them. Some theories have actually been debunked. But for the most part, you're looking at the mathematical analysis of a Dr. Frank still holds up. The work of Edward Solomon still holds up. Seth Keshel's work on registration trends is amazing. Draza Smith is a grid security expert, amazing. And she might be the unheralded expert that more people need to be paying attention to. And you know, and then you got the additional evidence from other people like the 2000 Mules folks, and it all fits together. What I love about this is everyone's theories seem to be jiving with one another, and that's a good case. If I wanted to present this to a jury, I think we would come back with a verdict in our favor.
Yep, so many different areas, but they all do converge at the same place. And at some point, the overwhelming evidence is just going to have to speak for itself. Now, you are on Telegram. I'm on Telegram, and I follow you. But you decided you were going to come to North Dakota just really recently.
I say yes to everything.
That's great.
Well, I've been trying to get, I tell people, invite me. And if I can make it work, I will, because I don't want, there's only one of me. There's only one of many of the people that have a specific discipline. Mine is in evidence. I'll put my resume against anyone on evidence that's legally permissible and something that's going to do the trick. And I've tried my best to understand the various experts and connect the dots in a way that is understandable, from input to output when we're looking at the election system. So whereas you'll have one person that can talk for hours on their discipline, I will give you a surface level view, and I'm just knowledgeable enough to put it all together, I think. But someone reached out to me from North Dakota and said, can you come here? I said, yes. And so I'm going to be doing a swing between Minneapolis down to Iowa up to North Dakota. And I'll probably be there for 2 days. And then from there, I'll go back to North Carolina to present to a county commission in the hopes of that they'll get rid of their rigged election machines.
Oh, great idea. Well, we're excited. The date is May 14th, which is a Saturday evening. 6 p.m. You will be at the Radisson in downtown Bismarck. And I am thrilled that you're actually making, we have a little flyover complex here, because it's not always that people come here. So we're very excited that you're going to be making a trip to North Dakota.
Well, it's my pleasure. New Mexico is the same way. I know what it feels like to be the forgotten state that no one thinks about. And it's really not about lots of people. It's about finding the right people to invigorate, to give hope to, and that they can fight. And so the strategy that we're trying to propose to anyone that will listen is the county commission strategy. And in North Dakota, it's the same thing. You've got local officials that certify elections that they should not be certifying. They should not be giving their stamp of approval that their elections are trustworthy. And the way that we make them trustworthy is to get rid of these rigged machines, go back to what we did for 200 plus years, use paper poll books, paper tabulation systems, count by hand, have reasonable and small precincts where people from all parties can look and give their results in person, live stream them. And so that's going to be the pitch, that there is a way to do things. And it's really right by revisiting the old ways. The old ways are the best ways.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. I always say go back to basics. So again, the date is May 14th, 6 p.m. at the Radisson downtown Bismarck. And Dr. David Clements will be, well, Professor David Clements, former professor. It's like, I don't know what to call you. All I know is Dave Clements is going to be here, and you're going to have an excellent presentation. I'm really looking forward to hosting you here. Thank you so much for being on the program, David.